Randy, these are just some examples of things that I can get at auctions, and we'll show you, and then I'll explain to you in writing about each of the numbers. This is a bunch of old horseshoes that I've purchased, and one of the things there is an old horseshoe punch that made the holes in them. They're real old stuff. These bean pots are pretty common at the auctions. I've run into quite a few of them and bought several of them. Come in a lot of different sizes. And I think mainly they used to hang them in the fireplace. Seems to be the way they cook the beans. This is a nice size one here. Okay, this is a 14-inch Dutch oven. And one man told me that it was made in 1928. It's really a beauty. Very large. That large ridge there is to hold the hot coals on the top when you have it sitting in the fire, and then you cover it with red hot coals. Okay, here's an example of a Griswold skillet, number 8. These seem to be the most expensive and most popular type. I don't have an example of a Wagner, but those are the still a collector item, seem to be, because they have a brand name, but they're newer. Let me turn that over. Okay. This is number 8 bean pot. Needs to be cleaned up a little on the inside, but it's in perfect shape. Okay. A household sewing machine. Looks like it's about 100 years old. The reason I bought it was to make a table out of it. I don't know if it has value all in one piece. It's a little rough. This is the cover for it. But as you can see, the side and the bottom, they're attractive. So if you had a glass or a oak top on it, it would look very nice. I thought there was a way that'd stay up. Can you? I think there's some deal there. I haven't really fooled. Okay, this is some miscellaneous things. Here's a real old level and some rasp and that. These kind of things are real common. I resell them at the flea market. I have hundreds of old tools like this. The saws are popular for people to buy and paint on them, and the old saws run several dollars a piece. That old welder's hammer. That's that one with the spring deal. This is an old set of ice tongs. You see them a lot. They're not super common, but they're around and seem to be a very popular collector's item. This one is real rough, hasn't been cleaned up or anything. Here's just another example of old tools that you get when you're buying things. You'll get things you don't even know are in the group, and this is the sort of things, but it's a very wide range of tools and so forth. These are mixers for mixing the milk in the milk cans. Shove them down the bottom and then pull up, just up and down, to agitate the milk so it wouldn't separate the cream out of it. Should be a pretty good collector's item. These are old grinding wheels. They're not really functional, but they would be good display items, I think. And These appear at the auctions, farm auctions, quite a bit. Here's an old skillet with long handle, has legs. Probably was used in the fireplace. Has a lid. It's a 12-inch unit. The only problem with that is that it's been broken and re-welded in the bottom. So as far as a collector's item, it probably doesn't have a high value. As a display item, it's really a neat item, I think. Randy, these are old trunks. None of them are in ideal condition, but they're not too hard to come by. They could be refurbished fairly easily, or just left as they are as display units in somebody's home or store. I can get this type of stuff. And just show all three of them. Are you filming that now? I'm amazed that slab will stand out. Here are some collectibles I got out of a large purchase that I had made. All kinds of little awls. This is a leather cutting device to cut a hole. And old signs and old license plates from the town we live in. We've got old openers and pulls, locks. That's an old meerschaum pipe. And the doorknob is a granite one. And I have many of the white doorknobs and doorknob fixtures and the brown doorknobs. Though I know they're collector's items. This is just some miscellaneous glass that was in this purchase of things I got. I don't know anything about glass, so, and I have some other pieces, but these are just examples of some of the things that I've run across. This is an old ironing board, and I have several of them. They show up quite a bit, various ones. I've got one that's totally wood. This one hasn't been cleaned up or anything done to it, but they're really neat for putting flower and plants to display in your window. That's what we use one of them for. Some of them apparently are very old. I don't know if it's necessary. Okay, here's a couple of lanterns that I got at an auction the other day. They're quite interesting, not totally uncommon. Some are a lot rarer and more expensive that I see showing up at these auctions. These are farm auctions. Furniture like this isn't totally uncommon to find around here. What does it say on that?
University of Missouri.
This is about I think that's a 30-inch buzz saw blade, and I run into every size of saw blade that you can imagine down here. That's an old-time wheelbarrow wheel. It'd be fun for a hobbyist to make a wooden wheelbarrow to display a flower pot or something outside. I see those around quite a bit. Okay, here's an old block and tackle. Those are pretty old wooden blocks. You can see the ropes kind of shot, but there are a lot of well pulleys and barn pulleys out of the hay lofts that are real common and are real popular collector items. A lot of fun to hang them up and display them. These milk cans aren't uncommon at all, not super expensive, but they are popular because people like to paint them. There are cream cans and other variations of cans that are often found on the farms, but there's a definite demand for them. This is an old milk separator. It's called a De Laval Junior. This is in total working condition. Could be cleaned up just a little more, but all the parts work in it. And you don't see them very often. I think you see the bigger ones more often than you do this size. Real neat display item. Okay, these are commonly known as lard presses, but they're also used to stuff sausage, and they're also used to squeeze cider. And I have 3 of these items. They're fairly common, but they're quite expensive to buy. And I have a lot of fun talking to the older people because all the older people are very familiar with these. Like this. A couple of old heavy metal scoop shovels. Probably the most interesting thing about them is their handles, if you want to indicate that. The newer ones are partly metal and partly wood. These are totally wood. Now these might be good to paint the front of the shovel. Some people would say paint the back side of the shovel. Those, I don't see too many of these, but the price isn't really that great for a shovel like that so far. That 2 or 3 things that go along with this. These big old post driving mallets can still be found around. I think they're really great. We keep this one leaning against the fireplace. These are a couple of andirons out of a fireplace. These are really old, and we come across different kinds of them. Fairly common. I'll turn them around the way they're supposed to be. And then here's an old wooden ironing board that's we use just to display some of the flowers. It is a totally wood one, but they're quite interesting. Here's an old colander that I came across the other day. They're kind of common, but you won't find them with the wooden part together. Those are normally sold separately. These are kind of a common item to be sold. They're not cheap, but you'll see them separate at the flea markets and that.
At high school, but you know those things are dangerous. You put the carbide in the water, and here you're generating all this acetylene gas.
But then here's a oh, that's wood.
reflector. Yeah, it's an old button, isn't it, or something?
I think it was a button. Sure is. There's a hole to it. I like this chain. It's really nice.
Okay.
All right.
Now here, these are things that I've found in a large lot that I bought, that I've been digging through the boxes. Here are a lot of marbles. Some of them are old ones, some of them aren't. Here's an old lipstick. Here's a rose rock. It's a crystal. Here's a real cute old tool. Real old railroad spike. May have been hand hammered. This is an old carbide miner's lamp. And here's a reflector for a miner's lamp with the flint starter. Here's an old can. Here's an old grinder.
Flower sifter. Maybe.
And some old keys. Another little tiny old tool. This is an old wooden button, I believe it is. Some old arrowheads. Here's a Masonic knife. Here's another rose crystal. An old horseshoe nail. An interesting old glass cutter tool. Take it apart. It has a scoring device. This is solid brass. Probably pretty old. This is an old Indian tool. Another old container. It's called Vaporol Iodine by Burroughs Wellcome and Company. Has some old tokens in it. This, I believe, is a real ivory toothpick.